Well, hello everyone. If it's Monday, we wear pink. I don't know. It's Bears of a Certain Age here with Jonny and Scott. Welcome everybody. We are at the onset of Pride Month right here on Bears of a Certain Age. Everywhere you turn around, there's a rainbow Target, Sears bumper sticker, aqua water colored rainbow flag, to the good and to the detriment of our entire society, I think. But Johnny, happy Pride, my friend.
Happy Pride. I love that you know what's so funny is so obviously Pride Month is June, but so many of the little towns will take it out through July because they want people to come to see them too, so they don't want to compete. And I think that's amazing. So basically it's just Pride summer.
Exactly. Well, you kind of have to.
And
A
I
lot of
love
people do it based on location too. I mean, we know we talk about Palm Springs all the time. Palm Springs Pride's in November because it's hot as hell,
yeah,
June, July, and August. So nobody wants to
exactly.
be there. And I think Miami's like one of the earliest kickoffs because they start getting really warm in March or April. So I think Miami's Pride's
Right?
usually in April. So you kind of got to go
I think
with the season and with the temperature.
exactly. I think I love the fact that it's all it is you take a moment, these cities take a moment to highlight for their citizens the joy that diversity brings us. And so I love it whenever it is. But yeah, but we just put it as the month of June on the calendar, but it's basically every month. And if you wanted to throw a party, anytime I throw a party at my house, it's Friday.
There
So
you
that's just
go.
what it is.
Well, it can be
Yeah.
such. We talk often about the double-edged sword on here. Pride can be very much a celebration, or it can be a protest, depending on the year,
Okay.
depending on what's happening, depending on the community throwing it, depending on the drama behind the pride committees. I mean, there's
Right.
so many things that go into a pride, right? That it's a very
Well, I
interesting
think
time of
it's
year.
you referenced Mean Girls in your opening with the wearing pink, and I think we have. I think it's a human thing, not just a queer thing. But the Mean Girl part can play. It depends on how your community works. There's also a gatekeeper aspect. Some people, which is part of I think mean girling, but it's just part. Listen, here it is. I've been on nonprofits that are have nothing to do with the queer community, and I can tell you firsthand, it's everywhere. So it all manages. It's all how you want to approach it, but it's a true thing. And one of the things we were talking about kind of before we started, you mentioned double-edged sword. One of the big things that you'll find in discussions in different communities is is pride a one day thing or is pride a different events going up to pride? And then you run into this weird thing that I've seen in more than one community where if the organization putting on Pride doesn't have their claim on all of the things going on, there is this rivalry between the groups, which is weird to me because we just should all celebrate each other, and no one owns Pride. You know, no one should own Pride.
Exactly.
You know, except that it's a part of each of us, especially if we identify as any part of the queer community.
Yeah, it happened in Cleveland. Cleveland actually split and had two prides one year because two separate groups broke off. They all got mad at each other, and they each had to have their own pride. It was the funniest thing and the saddest thing I've ever seen at the same time. But
Yeah,
it's like we do tend to eat our own in some of these things, and
yeah,
pride means
and
so
that's
many
just
different things.
human
To me,
nature.
pride is always history. I'm because of we're activist based. You and I are both social activists and everything we do in our podcasts and everything. I like to think about the historical aspects of pride, and not
Yeah,
necessarily make it a negative thing, but make it a celebration of things we've gone through. But you need to know
exactly.
your history so you don't repeat it. I'm a huge advocate of that, and that pride
Exactly.
is more for me.
And that's, I think, I always say if we don't understand why we have the right to celebrate, we should learn that first. You know what I mean? I love that so many young people are able to embrace who they are and have families that embrace them. I think it just helps us more if we understand that that wasn't always it. You know what I mean? And give you a reason to dance and be so thrilled that this is your life now. I think it's important to do those things. You know what I mean? And I think you're right. I mean, you make a good point that you and I are activist minded. So maybe it is a little simpler for us to say this is what it is. And not that I am not human and, let that fall into place. But I do want to see those pieces remembered because, as you say, the only way not to repeat your history is to know it,
Right.
to know that history. Yeah, yeah.
But one of the things I
Bears got the best of me. I said, bears on my fantasy. I said, bears ain't what I like. We do it all night, alright. Bears that don't discriminate. I take a carbon chop to circumnavigate. Steal my heart and let it percolate all night, alright. Bears got the best of me. I said, bears on my fantasy. I said, bears ain't what I like. We do it all night, alright. Bears.
learned this year that it was very kind of profound to me when I heard it because I'm working with the Bayard Rustin LGBTQ Resource Center in Akron. It's a fantastic resource center, serves primarily the African American community around that area, and they have a Black Pride. And then
Yes.
everyone, and when they first started doing it, they got a lot of grief. It's like, well, we have Pride already in Akron. Why do you have to have a Black Pride? And I always kind of thought the same thing. We kind of divide ourselves sometimes. But the director of the center talking about it, and he had some I thought was a great reason behind it. It's like pride is not for you. Pride is for the people that come to visit it, right? You wouldn't stop anyone from having an Irish Pride Festival or an Irish parade, right? You wouldn't have someone by having a Celtic or a Slovakian and Italian. I mean, in Youngstown, Ohio, there's 5 Italian Fest, right? You wouldn't stop them.
Right.
You're celebrating their heritage. You want people to learn their heritage. Pride is about learning
Yeah.
things. And a Black Pride, you learn more about the Black community in a Black Pride and what it
Right.
means to be gay. Because sometimes it means very different to be gay and Black than it does to be white and Black. And I think that's what all prides are. It's we're welcome you to join our community and see what we're all about. The good, the bad, and the ugly, because we have good and bad and ugly in all of us, right? So it's a
And
new way
all
for me to look at it, and I love that.
that's the human through line is that, it is, I like to find ways to find our common denominators in humanity. And I think as we try to reach across the aisle to our heterosexual brothers and sisters, it's important to help them understand. And I think you're right when you say Black Pride. I think I always tell people when I first started in radio, it was me and three other white guys on one show, and I got so much flack. And I said, they said I was letting my white privilege show, and I said, I hear what you're saying, and there are reasons behind the scenes why there isn't it, because nobody else was trying to be on that show but these guys. So I will tell you this, everybody has privilege. Everybody. I don't care who you are. There is something in your life that makes you privileged where another person is not. The first thing I can do is recognize I have privilege. And the second and most important thing I can do is step beyond that privilege to understand another person. That's all I can do. I can't change that I'm a white guy. I can't change my age. I can't change that I'm a big old queerdo. What I can do is take those things and then try to understand another person's shoes. Didn't Elvis tell us, did he have a song about you don't know a man till you walk a mile in that man's shoes? I mean, my dad loved Elvis, and I have always taken that. And I know I'm going to fuck up. I'm not going to be perfect at it, but I'm always going to try to go, I don't understand what it's like to be a queer Black person in this world. And their experience is way different than my experience. Why would I deny them the right to celebrate who they are? Plus, we're teaching our kids. You know what I mean? We want our fellow humans to celebrate themselves in a good and positive way because we don't allow that. And so I think that's amazing. But you're right. The first thing in my head would have been like, why do they need Black Pride? Well, that's not the right question.
Right.
And as we recognize that in ourselves, we can ask the right question. you
And it
know.
helps us expand our own horizons too. I think we need to do that. I shoot myself every year. I always go through all the episodes that I did for a year on my podcast, right? And I look at it, and every year I say I'm going to change, but every year I look at it, it's like, okay, I had 7 African Americans and 2 women on all last year. It's like, it's not that I'm anti African American or anti women. You don't
Right,
think about it. It's not my circle of influence. It's not my circle of friends. And
right,
unless they reach out to, I have to learn to reach out more, and I have to learn to expand
right.
my circle more. And that's why I love
Yeah,
when someone reaches out to me and asks, yes, please let me learn about you, and
yeah,
kind of enjoy that, because we all kind of are a little cocooned in our own little, like you said, everyone has their own privileged worlds, right? And whatever that world
yeah.
happens to be, that's who we tend to communicate with the most. So I always
And let's
look at that.
Yeah, let's be honest. I mean, I can only speak of my experience, but queer men are very insular. Queer guys, and it's just for some reason, how we culturally have created ourselves. So I think, queer guys, my fellow queer brethren, you do have to take the effort to step outside of it. Because listen, I'm right there with you, and I love what you said, because I say all the time, I'm like, I don't think about it because all of my friends, the majority of them are, queer men. And of course, through the years, I've tried to change that now and balance a little more. And although not perfect, and now I love a more well-rounded life. But it's true because like attracts like. We want to be around people that we recognize and see. I mean, we're sitting around telling for the last how many decades, hey, straight people, you should see that I'm here too. But what we like to do is say, your path is going over here. I would feel better if your path was right here. Well, that's not what it is. I hope all paths are everywhere, and we need to learn to have friends that are part of all of it.
And I think that's what pride should all be about. And I think we've had some strong years where it has been. I think
Yeah,
we're getting back around because of all the controversies out there right now. I think it has become a little more focused on the pride element of in ourselves, than more than just a party with all the drag queens. I love having my drag queens at Pride, but it's a lot more than just having entertainment after entertainment on the stage. It's all about talking about the different groups and having the representation by all these different groups. So yeah.
and why are those drag queens on that stage? Like the fight that took forever to get them to where now. I mean, RuPaul's Drag Race wouldn't exist if it hadn't have been for all of the work that was being done from way back in the 50s and the 60s and even probably before that. So it's even more fun, those drag queens up on that stage entertaining you, if you recognize, oh, wow, they have earned the right to be on that stage to entertain. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's the crazy thing.
Yeah, like I said, I think we try to be bigger and better every year, and sometimes bigger and better is not best, right? A lot of communities use it for the big fundraisers every year, so they it turns into a money grab and a money game. And I understand that they need it to support their programs and things like that. So I do understand it. But then you start charging $10 for Pride, and there's some people that can't afford to go $10 for Pride. Do you have a
Yeah.
scholarship program to offset that and let people in for free? It's just I think we need to take the monetization out of it and make it into the group activity of it and bringing everybody into the tent. And it's very hard to do in today's day and age, but it's something I hope we get back to eventually.
Well, and you had mentioned, you had alluded to things like Target and other corporate sponsorships. Of course, that's been a gigantic conversation because to reach more people, you need more money. And then you're like, did you, sell your soul? And look at Target who turned on us. And now this year, they're deciding if they want to risk doing Pride thing, which is just, pardon my French, but that's just bullshit. But here's the thing: a lot of, the more people you're bringing in, the larger that pride is, more likely you need to bring in some money to cover that. And so it is this kind of like, how do you balance that? I don't wish anybody not to get the money they need to have these beautiful festivals, but it is a balance that is not easy to do, and you can't let it take over why you're doing it. And I'm not saying every organization does that. I'm just saying it happens. And you're right. What if you start? A lot of prides are being charged for. I used to live in a city that did that. You have to look at these things because then what's going on behind that? That you have now you have othered our own community. You have said it's us and them. And so I do think it's problematic and it's a slippery slope that once you start, where do you end? You know, what's coming at the very end? Are we doing a classist society for queer people? I don't know. But we do need to watch those things. Like, I don't know how you balance the money aspect that is definitely needed. I don't know how
Tough.
you do
It's
that.
a tough thing. I mean, you need. We both work in different positions where everything where you had to pay for anything you did, right? So you don't use. I understand the concept of having a big fundraiser every year to fund certain events, but when it's something that's for
Right,
the community, I don't know if that's as much it. Like we talked,
right,
even your fantastic underwear show, it was priced to make it accessible for everyone. You had to pay to make it happen, but it wasn't a fundraiser event for you. You broke even, right? So it's
right,
more about
exactly.
when it's community event like that to show body positivity, or if it's when a community event to
Yeah,
show pride in the community. We have to balance that between events that are true fundraisers. There's a lot of things you can do that are true fundraisers, but I don't think pride should be
exactly.
one of them. That's my personal opinion.
I think you're right, especially because for most communities, Pride is that big jewel in the crown every year. It's that moment. So I agree with you. And like some groups are really great at this. I know where I live, they do lots of things throughout the year to start raising money because it's needed. But yeah, I think you make some really good points. And I wanted to ask you because we have both also have similar histories. I know you used to run like a community pride center. I used to do that in my 20s as well. Um, I don't think it was even easy then. It's not as hard as it is now. It's really hard now. But what was that experience like for you?
It was really difficult, especially in the more impoverished areas. I mean, Youngstown is not a huge demographic of rich people everywhere, so you're very much trying to you're battling with the coming out process and being out and open to a conservative turning more toward purple and red state every time. So you're balancing that. You're balancing having events, like you said, how much publicity can you do without there being the negative side of publicity that comes from the rest of the community. So you're always trying to weigh those kind of things, and that was very important to us. We were, I think, the group that has taken over now, and they're called Full Spectrum Community Center, and they've really done well. I mean, the Pride we've had a Pride Center around in Youngstown for a very long time, and I was very proud to be 3 years of it. We had a space donated to us that was that was nice, but it was not in the best shape. We made as best we could, but it was nice to just to have a space where we could meet, right? The current group has raised money to buy a house, and now they have their own house, and they've made a great they've found a way to get donations to do food pantries and drag closets and all these different wigs and different things for different people, and they're getting ready to do housing for people that are kicked out. I mean, they've really stepped up the game, things that I never would have thought of, and I stopped doing it only 5 to 10 years ago, so it hasn't been that long a time. But
Yeah,
it was difficult doing the balancing act of being open enough to get enough people to support you, and being having the community to kind of support it behind there, to have enough people to make it
exactly.
happen.
Yeah.
It was a balancing act.
And I have to say, so I'm very outspoken, shocking, I know. And I have to say, I have a lot of respect for the community organizations that do these things. So I never say anything out of disrespect. I know how hard that work is. So I love that people have taken that on. I would also say a lot of these organizations, like the one in our town as well, they do community, basically open houses or open forums where you can come and say, these are my opinions. I think that's very important. Now, given just because you have an opinion doesn't mean it's a good one. But you should, if you feel the need to do that, these organizations are trying to hear from you as well. I think it's important to be authentic. I show up at meetings and sometimes I say things that people don't want to hear and maybe they don't care. And that's okay. But I think it's important to show up and say, hey, I have a lot of respect for the work you're doing. This is what I think. This is, I would like to throw this out there. But I come from a background where don't complain without a solution. Does nobody any good. You're wasting my time. You're wasting other people's time. Show up and say, hey, I've noticed this. I didn't like it. I wonder if you guys have thought of this. And then sit your ass down and shut up and listen. You know what I mean? You don't have to go on and on. If you don't like it, there's other things you can do. But I do think it's important to be authentic. I think it's important to be honest with these organizations because what's that old adage? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's just it's just a human nature thing that sometimes a group that has all the power over something that can get out of hand unless there's a give and take. And I think there are community organizations that have done a great job saying we want to hear from you, we're going to listen to you. And so I just want to reiterate that I love the work that gets out there to make Pride happen. And even if I stand up and say I would like to criticize this, it's only because you're doing that good of a job, I think, that I'm being honest. Because I love all of the groups in our town that work as hard as they do. But I'm always going to be that guy who, is going to say things when needed said and celebrate things when needed to celebrate. I think both sides of that coin are so important. But just know that when it comes, I say this too. So when I did the underwear show, so I produced and directed that show, and I had some people who helped, and one of the stylists had not put on a show at that level, and so it's that we have 4 days till showtime. He is stressing. We're at a rehearsal. He is stressing out big time, and I take him aside and I say, "This is what I need. Try to hear me. I have been directing shows for 30 years. When you get to those final days, this show isn't yours anymore. You have to give up the control and say, I hope I've instilled enough of what I wanted to into these people, and now it's theirs. Like you're torturing yourself, you're torturing others. You have to let it go and trust the vision." I think it's the same thing. Let's say you're a week from Pride and you didn't like something. I believe greatly it's now time to support the people who are putting on Pride. Go have a really good time and love it. And then as you start planning next year, if you wish things were different, say things then. But celebrate those people because they are spending a lot of time working their asses off for something that is important, even if it's not exactly what you were hoping for. So if we are in that final stretch, pretend you're a director and be like, hey, I just need to support them. This is no longer, it's going on. So now let's make it amazing. Because that's also showing everybody else in the world who maybe doesn't want to see your pride, showing them that, hey, we're not going to interfight and destroy this. We're going to come together when it's important to come together. So,
And I really think we need, speaking of coming together, we have to make them not a battle for popularity, right? I mean, it's nice that we're having these extra prides, but do we need to have an Akron Pride and a Canton Pride that are 20 miles apart? Can we combine our
yeah,
resources, make it cheaper for the community, have a better thing for our
yeah,
community? We had a discussion about that the other day, and we're still on the fence of it. It's like someone that was organizing one of our local prides said, "I can't believe that XYZ 20 miles away is putting on a pride the exact same day as ours." It's like, just be excited
yeah,
that they have the people that are motivated to put on a pride. Reach out to them and see
yeah,
next year, can we do it together? I mean, I think there is good and bad to that, right?
right,
It's nice to be able to, I can see both sides. I can see how wonderful is it that each town has a little bit of pride. Like I said, there's
right,
3 Italian fests just in the greater Youngstown area because each have their own neighborhoods, have their own young Italian pride. How nice is it to have your own gay pride in 3 different neighborhoods in your county? But it's also
right,
nice to do things together as well. So I think we have to
yeah,
we can't own it. We have to let it own the community, right? We have to let it to
Yes.
stand for a bigger thing. And that's what I think,
And
that's
I
what
think
my goal for prides are.
so anytime I start a new project, I think you nailed it on the head there. I remind my team every time, what is our why? Before we start pre-production, what's the big why? Because you're going to need to keep returning to why are you doing this. Otherwise, you'll get sidetracked. You'll get lost in jealousy and competition and what is our why in this moment? And I agree with you. If there are many ways to handle that. Is there a way to come together next time? Is there but in the end, is it about the number we bring in that city and taking from or is it a why is the why? Why do you want pride? You know what I mean? And you have to, it's the only compass you have is what your big why is. So I have to say, I wanted to say as we wind down, I want your opinion, and everybody, you're going to have an opinion on this. Is our goal to one day not need pride? Like not need a big day to celebrate? Is that a goal the queer community should have, given it's probably 100 years off even to have that talked about? But what do you think?
Like I said,
I,
my opinion on this has changed. That was always my goal, to where there's no pride was needed, that we're all one big happy family. But then like I said, I started thinking, and when I was talking to the community director of the Bayard Center, it's like, no, wouldn't it be kind of nice just to show off what we're all about? And just like the Italian people have their fest to show what being Italian's about. Make it a party. It doesn't have to be a protest. Let's have a pride party and show everyone what it's like to really love each other and what it's like, the positive sides of being gay. So I've turned the corner a little bit. Before I wanted it to never have to be a pride. Now I want to have the meaning change and make it just a huge celebration for everyone, not just for our community. What about you?
See, I think that's amazing. I'm with you. And I don't know if it's because of our generation. I don't know if it's because we came up the same way in this fight. But I agree. I would love to see it to where it's a cultural celebration. We just want to share. It's a cultural exchange. I want to share with you what me as a queer guy, what I have incorporated in my life and the history that we have. But I still take that point where I still hope there's a day when it's no longer about the fight, where it's no longer about protesters who need to get in my face and tell me off, where it's about, oh, I'm going to go over here and check out that event because it's cultural and I want to know more about those people. And we do have to separate the emotion and our prejudice from the queer part. But I'm with you. I want to see that. I want that. That's so much more beautiful and celebratory. But also, I'm realistic and pragmatic, and I understand that right now is not that time, and maybe it won't happen in my lifetime. But I do hope that that's our trajectory and that's our goal.
I do too, and I don't want to end this on a downer, but I just want to improve to go upon your point. Very interesting thing has happened. I decided that I want to do a post to promote the big gay road trip, which I don't, a paid post. I don't do paid posts for anything. I don't really believe in it, but I thought
Right.
I will do a paid post where I'll get it out there so people will learn about it. It's been out for one day, and I've had 14 different hate comments and church comments from people. And it's
Oh
people I
yeah.
don't
Well,
know. And so I know it's from the ad. It's not what the ad's about. It's from paying to go out there. So now I'm thinking, do I want to promote to anybody? Because I thought I targeted it to LGBTQ people. Obviously, the algorithm had different things in mind, right? But I was
right.
very shocked to see that there was going to be vitriol toward it. I have to admit that a lot, and it's just a little strange to deal with. So it's going to be an interesting
And
journey still.
it seems unnecessary, to just regular people looking at things. I don't understand the need for that reaction. But you're talking to an old veteran of lots of hate mail. So I get it, and that is a question you ask every time. Do I feel safe enough to continue to promote something? But here's the thing: a lot of haters sit behind their keyboard, and that's where they feel the safest. And so sometimes you push through, but it is It is nerve-wracking. So I
It's the
get it.
opposite. I'm not afraid enough, and I like to engage. So I'll engage back and forth and say, "Let it go. Be like
Right?
ocean. Let it go."
Yep. And I think I don't necessarily even see that as a downer. I see it as a reality and something that's okay to talk about because we need to. And but definitely don't engage. I'm
All
always
right. Well,
like,
speaking of
because
let
it's a
it go, we need to
one-sided
let go
argument.
this episode. We promised ourselves to keep it to half-hour episodes. Happy Friday,
Yeah, we
everybody.
could do it.
Johnny, enjoy the big stage. I'm going to be having a
Yeah.
booth at all the different regional prides around here. I'm excited. Any last words of wisdom, my friend?
Find a way to celebrate, however that is. Some people don't like big crowds. Just celebrate the queerness that's in you and the queerness in the community around you. Just find a way to be joyous. That's what I say.
Wear your rainbow underwear and walk around the edges of the park. Just be a little bit there. I
Exactly. I love it. Remember, you can always comment on this show. You can always subscribe if you want to see more of our shows. And you can always send us a comment at podcastfairs@gmail.com. Scott and I love to hear from you. So, yeah. And until the next week will be another live. So you can jump on there and follow us there and send us your live comments. We love that too.
look for us every other Monday on Instagram, and otherwise, we'll be here and talking to you then. We appreciate you every week. Thanks so much for tuning in to Bears of a Certain Age. We will see you next week live on Instagram. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bears on my fantasy. Bears into what I like. We do it all night, alright. Bears that don't discriminate. I take a carbon chop to circumnavigate.